All right, all right. Well, this is, of course, the Musically Cogitating podcast, what I believe is the best podcast on the internet, but you can fight me on that. And today I am interviewing one of my internet friends and colleagues, Emmanuel. So, Emmanuel, if you could just introduce yourself, tell us what you do, who you are, where you are, and yeah, we'll have a fun little chat.
Well, yeah, first of all, this is the best podcast in the world. But thanks much for having me. For those who don't know me, I'm Emmanuel Jacob Lacopo. I'm a guitarist and composer currently based in Montreal. I've been here since the pandemic hit in March, and I have not gone back to Connecticut where I'm doing my master's. It's a very weird reality right now. But I guess what I do is hard. To be completely honest, I'm still trying to figure out what it is that I do. And it's been a lot of fun. I've been having fun figuring it out. But I'm really interested in defining what the possibilities are for 21st century classical music, what 21st century guitar is, and as well as an understanding of the limitations we place on ourselves when it comes to guitar and what the classical guitar world has kind of done to guitar. A large portion of my work now, especially going into my doctorate, is placing a really big focus on understanding the reasons behind the music that we program, and just trying to reevaluate the systems in place that tell us what we should play, when we should play, and why we should play it. So that's really been the focus of my work lately, especially. And yeah, it's been great. I've been doing a ton of projects, a ton of recordings, a ton of, all things throughout this pandemic that have really opened my eyes on what I can do with guitar. And I've met some amazing people along the way.
Yeah, for sure. So how did you come to playing the guitar? I don't know if you started when you were 3 or if you started when you were 13 or, so how did you come to playing the guitar?
Yeah, so I did not start with classical guitar. Classical guitar came very, very late. I started playing guitar probably at it's a really long time ago, man. Maybe 6 or 7 years old.
Oh, okay. So you were little.
I was little. I was really little. Yeah. And my brother was in a rock band growing up. I come from a really big family. We're including me, there's 6 of us. So there was always a lot of noise in the house. There was always a lot of music, a lot of different types of music going on at the same time in the house. But my brother played rock and roll, so that's what I grew up on. I used to come home from school and just listen to Led Zeppelin and the Beatles with him, and just listen to. He would show me I remember one specific day I came home and he was listening to Radiohead, and it just completely changed my life. And that was the moment where I was wow, guitar is the coolest thing ever. So I grew up playing rock music, playing in bands, playing with friends, jamming a bunch. Eventually in high school I started really getting into metal music. So I had a metal band for a couple of years with one of my best friends, and that was a whole lot of fun. And then one day, I don't know, I just I was primarily self-taught with guitar. I was teaching myself, learning from my brother, learning from friends, just by doing, really. And one day I was I want to take lessons. I want to see what I could learn, what else is out there. And there was this one guy I found that one of my friends was taking lessons with, and he came to my house with this Yamaha classical guitar, and he started playing some barrios for me, and I was whoa, what is that? And I was I need that. So I went to buy a nylon string guitar, and I started learning, and I just fell in love with it. And then I realized you could go to school for music, and that was okay, yeah, this is the thing. This is what I'm gonna do. So I kind of just stumbled upon classical guitar, and I've never really looked back. Now I feel I'm at a point where the line of genre is just starting to blur.
Yeah.
And doesn't really exist anymore. I'm just I've been thinking more and more about when I was younger, jamming in bands and stuff, jamming with friends, and just what it felt like, and how different music feels now. Apart from the whole aspect of the pandemic, but just the juxtaposition of my life playing music then versus within the conservatory. And I think it's like those two parallels that have really been pushing my work forward lately.
It's so hard because people are like, you play guitar, and I'm like, yeah, and they're like, what kind of music do you play? And I'm like, yeah. Like I play a lot of classical music and contemporary music, but what does contemporary music mean? I mean, that means something different to everyone, and you also compose, so maybe maybe you could take us on a little bit of a journey as to how you started to write music. Have you taken composition lessons? Have you not? What's your experience been with, deciding, oh, I'm going to write music as well?
That's a good question. I mean, okay, do you know who Mark Stewart is?
No.
Check out Mark Stewart after this. He's awesome. He's like, he tours with Paul Simon, and he's like, he's part of like the Bang on a Can All Stars and all that. But he has this one TED Talk, and in it he talks about how like as humans we've all lost the understanding that as a birthright we're all sound makers. Like that's his thing, right? And he's a really cool dude because in the TED Talk's only 10 minutes, and like he shows everyone like all these instruments he created. He created like this Ciyadh, he calls it, that's like made out of PVC pipes. He like made this one thing where it's like three flute whistles that are connected by one PVC pipe, so they're all played in like rhythmic unison. And it's all these things, and he's talking about how like everyone can kind of create music. Everyone has a birthright to make sound and to create. Like that's what it is to be human. And like some people disagree with it. I also see it that way. And I think when it comes to composing, I felt like during my undergrad, like everyone who does an undergrad in music knows, like you're going to have to do a lot of things you don't want to do. There's going to be a lot of music you don't want to play, a lot of classes you don't want to take. And a lot of times, a lot of people don't make it out of undergrad. A lot of people are like, man, I can't do this. I can't do music anymore. I have to leave. A lot of people, lose their love for their instrument. You see it all the time, and it's really sad. And I felt like that's what I was getting to. By the end of undergrad, I felt like I was overworked. I was tired. I was, did not feel creative at all. I did not feel excited about music. And I started to realize that, well, it's like I'm playing music by the rules that these people are placing on me. I'm playing what they want me to play because of whatever reason, and I'm waking up and I'm kind of doing the same thing every day. And I didn't like it. I was like, I want to feel excited when I pick up my guitar. So one day I was like, my all my master auditions are done. Everything's done. Let me see what it feels like to be creative. And I just started writing, and like, I wrote a lot of bad music. I wrote a lot of bad music. And, some people argue I still write bad music, but, it is what it is. Everything has a place, right?
Right.
So I just started writing, and I started waking up excited again. I started waking up like wanting to explore ideas, like, oh, like what if there was a piece that like had these aspects and all these sort of things, and just like it started becoming like this thing of experimentation. Like there's things that no one has ever heard that I made, but I learned so much from doing it. And eventually I just started realizing that music could be whatever I wanted it to be. There is no limit to what classical music can be or is. And now I just I need it. Like I need to write music. There's even now where there's I have so many different deadlines of recordings and stuff that have to be done. But I'm like, okay, I'm going to do all of this. And then these 2 days, I'm just going to be writing music. I'm just going to be exploring ideas, just having fun, and seeing what I could come up with. And I think now it's become a lot more of a natural process. There's some pieces that I write within an hour, and I have a whole piece that I'm like, wow, I just had this idea, and I just put it on a page. There's other pieces I don't know if you've been following this electric guitar thing I'm writing, Blue Whale,
mm-hmm.
but I just finished that, and it's been in the works for 6 months. So I started to really realize that I have a sort of creative output that I don't want to force, but I need to let it out. And whether the end product ends up seeing the light of day and a ton of people hear it, or if I never put it out, or if only one person hears it, it doesn't matter. It's kind of like a process that I need to commit to. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that totally answers my question. I think so many people are like, oh, I've never taken, composition lessons or had any formal composition training, so I can't be a composer, and that stops them from continuing.
For sure. I mean, I've never taken any composition lessons at all. What happened was, during my undergrad, I was just playing guitar. And then when I started my master's at Yale, I realized that, I have a lot of free time here. Let me just start studying music, looking through scores, doing what we do in class, but for myself, and just started seeing just what can I learn from this? And then I started, I did a lot of just trying to teach myself what it is to write music, even though it's such an abstract concept. And then at Yale, actually, I was allowed to take secondary composition lessons where you study with one of your colleagues who's a composition student. And I was sitting with one of my friends there, and essentially it was just we would meet up in a room and just hang out, drink coffee, and just talk about music, talk about philosophy, talk about everything. And it was really cool because it wasn't these sort of composition lessons where you go in and you're doing counterpoint exercise and all this sort of thing, which I'm sure that would have been helpful because I've no idea. But this whole idea of just going and sitting in a room with someone and just talking about things that may or may not exist in the world, things that the world may or may not need to make it better, and just coming up with these ideas of man, how cool would it be to create something that made you feel this or that accomplished this? And that was pretty much the extent of my composition lessons, just hanging around and talking about ideas and drinking coffee. And now I'm really lucky because of my last semester here at Yale, I'm taking a course with David Lang, and I'm taking a course with Martin Bresnik, and these have been really, really great, just really opening my mind. But I haven't really done much formal training on composition. It's really just been exploring my own mind.
To kind of continue with thinking about, composing is, do you want to compose for other instruments, not guitar?
Oh yeah,
because
definitely.
Because I think there's this weird misconception or idea, and I don't know if you've noticed this in the guitar community, but that only guitarists can write for guitar, and that guitarists cannot write for other instruments. It's so strange, but yeah. I think we've really limited ourselves. And so how are you exploring the idea of, being a guitarist, being someone who composes for guitar, but also for other instruments? Because, I mean, it's almost assumed that, if you're a composer, you will compose for other instruments. But I think guitarists can be kind of short-sighted about that.
Yeah, it's almost there's become there's guitarists, there's composers, and then there's guitar composers.
Yes.
I think part of the issue is guitar's a really hard instrument. Okay, first of all, it's every time I talk to my composer friends, they're always telling me, I don't know if this is the case for all institutions, but during my undergrad, they would always tell me we learn how to write for every instrument but guitar. There's no real treatises about writing for guitar. So it's this weird abstract concept, and it's even here at Yale, there's this one of my colleagues is writing a piece right now for guitar and electronics, and he's just having such a difficult time because it's unexplored territory, and because of that, I think a lot of the music that non-guitarists end up writing for guitar is really hard.
Yeah.
And guitarists also, there's also this idea of guitaristic music versus non-guitaristic music, and what feels good on the guitar and what doesn't feel good on the guitar. And it's a challenge. A lot of music written by non-guitarists are a challenge because they don't realize, they only have 4 left-hand fingers that they play with, and they can only stretch so far. Some people have pretty tiny hands like I do, so that makes it even harder. And it's not a fun thing, But that isn't to say that this music is bad. I just like premiered two pieces by non-guitarists, and they were some of the hardest things I've ever played, but they were just so amazing, like so amazing. When it comes to writing for other instruments, I've written two pieces for other instruments. I wrote one called Vice for solo cello, and there's a really terrible recording of it on YouTube, just like really bad audio quality, really bad video quality. But you know, you hear it. The performer was amazing. I'm like so grateful to her for playing my music. And if I were still in New Haven, I would like be trying so hard to get a professional recording of it. But one day, and I wrote a string quartet that's never been recorded, because I wrote it during the pandemic, so hopefully soon. I think it's really important to explore other instruments and to write for other instruments because, how can I put this? Every instrument has like this sweet thing it can do, you know? Like, I would die to be able to play like a cellist, you know, just have the sustain and like the control. It would just be amazing, right? There's certain things. Every instrument has like one thing that it can do that another instrument can't, and it makes that instrument really, really special. And I think there's something to be explored in every instrument. And every piece you write, at least for me, every piece I write is a sort of exploration of an idea. You know, like I want to explore texture, I want to explore timbre, I want to explore rhythm, whatever it is. And there's always going to be a group of instruments or a single instrument that does that better than another thing. You know, if I would have written Vice, that piece I wrote for cello, for guitar, it wouldn't have worked out as well. It wouldn't have got the same message across. You know, for me, I wrote Vice when I was first semester. I think it was my first semester at Yale. And that first semester was like the first time I had ever moved away from Montreal. I felt like very confused, very alone. Like it was a big shock to me, you know, being in, and like going to Yale too, like it was just a lot. It was just very overwhelming. So Vice to me was just like everything I was doing to like cope with it, right? And I feel like because it was on cello, I was really able to explore like the depths of these emotions a lot easier than I would have on guitar. And I think it's also a learning process. Like when I was writing my my string quartet, like for both of those pieces, for Vice and my string quartet Nuance, it was, I don't know how many drafts I did. Like I would show it to someone and they would just be like, yeah, you can't do this sort of thing. Like this doesn't work. And you learn so much. You learn about different instruments. You learn about, you know, different sonorities, different textures, different ways to get ideas across. And it's like, sometimes you kind of feel like a mad scientist, you know, like you're kind of deconstructing these things and what you can do with it. And for me, I learned a lot about music that way, and I feel like it really helps my own performances as well.
So what is it like to hear someone playing the music that you wrote? Because I've heard people say that, you know, when you write a piece, when you give it to the performer, it's, you know, you have to really let go of the ideas that you had about how it would sound. And I've seen a lot of people be really upset when the piece comes out not how they intended or how they thought it would sound. And so what's it like being someone who is a composer who makes music for other people to play, and then they play it and it's not what you thought?
Honestly, it's one of the most exciting feelings in the world for me.
Oh,
like,
okay.
I'm not bothered when it's like not the way I thought it was when it's performed. I'm like, okay, because there's somewhere I want to go with this. So I'm gonna let me think about it for a second. Let me think about the best way to go about it. So obviously, like, you write something and you're like, man, I can't wait for this part. Like, this part's gonna be awesome, right? And then, you know, you go to the concert, it's not the way you thought. All right, let's say that happens. For me, the way I look at it, it's like every piece of music, like I said, has something to say. But there's a relationship between the composer and the performer, regardless if that composer's been dead for 300 years or not. There's a sort of relationship there. There's a conversation that you're having. And the thing that I hate the most is when music just becomes notes on a page and you're trying your best to get all the notes right, all the right rhythms, and not make any mistakes. But there's another layer of music that has to be explored, and it's not only what does this music mean, what does it represent, but what does it represent to you? You know, and how is your voice going to express, you know, this phrase, this line, this idea. So like the first time I ever heard one of my pieces performed, I think I was just like, I don't know, like shaking with excitement. It was just so nice to hear someone play something that I wrote for the first time ever. And it was just like, it also just changed my perspective on the piece itself. Like just hearing like, well, you know, how specific can I be with this instruction, and how is the performer going to take that? And if I wasn't specific enough with what I wanted and the performer took it one way, a lot of the times the performer, like once they commit to it, they make a really strong point for their idea, you know, and sometimes it shows you something that you couldn't even come up with yourself. I think that whole idea in and of itself is what really inspired like my latest set of compositions, this whole transmutation series I'm doing with visual scores. And it's kind of about creating this ecosystem for the guitarist and the performer and the composer, where it's very aleatorically based, and the performer has a lot of freedom on what they can play. The order of the music, like the order of the cells, they could manipulate what's within the cell themselves. They dictate the tempo. They can decide, you know, is this going to be on classic guitar, electric guitar? Do I want to create a backing track with this? So at the end of the day, I give you a lot of the material, but the performer has the last say in what this piece says, really. And now, like, even working with, like, the first one I wrote, Transmutation 1, I wrote that for Gigi, and she's going to be premiering that soon. And when I got her recording back, it was just like, man, this is amazing. Like, this is exactly what I want. Like, I want someone to take these ideas I have, and I want it to be, you know, an additive process. I want the performer to add their own personality, their own story, their own uniqueness to my music too. And I want it to change. Like, I want it to evolve. I want it to grow. And, you know, that's kind of my perspective on the music that I write.
Okay, that's a great perspective. It's just nice to hear that perspective, because I hear so many different perspectives coming from people who write music, composers, and so it's just always interesting to ask people how they feel and what they think about it. Do you have any goals that you want to achieve with composition? No, you just
no. With composition, I don't know. Honestly, I used to have this idea of, you know, I want to get my music played, first of all. And I want everyone to hear it. You know, that used to be like my idea. Like, I want to get this music played. I want everyone to hear it. I want to do this big thing. I want people to love it. And now I kind of look at it like, not all music is for everyone. You know, not everyone's gonna like every idea. Not everyone's gonna need to hear everything. So my goal with my music is I want to take my crazy ideas and find the people who need to hear it, even if it's just one person, and find a way to get my music to that one person. I'm starting to understand that my process of writing music is a lot of this, sitting down and just like, you know, looking around the room and thinking, you know, like, what doesn't exist in the world, or what exists in the world and I find super interesting. What does the world need more of, you know, and how can I create that? And it's so my goals are really just, how can I be as authentic to my own voice? How can I create something that is really going to, you know, excite someone else the way someone else's music excites me, and just keep the process going. Essentially, there's never going to be enough art. There's never going to be enough authentic art. So I'm just trying to do that.
I love that. So I have to ask, is it the same way for the guitar playing? Do you just kind of sit back in your chair and you're like, what does the guitar need today? What does the world need?
That's why I got a guitar lift. Because with a guitar lift, you know, you can just like lean back.
I love it. So you're going to go get a doctorate, and as someone who is today I'll say I'm 69% of the way done with that. You know, like you don't start that kind of a process without having some sort of goal. And not that your goal has to be becoming a professor, but
Yeah.
it might just be something that you want to learn throughout the process. So, you know, why do it? So I ask myself that.
Why do it? You know,
Why do
like, that's the big question. Okay. I'm going to try to make this not so much of a long-winded answer. So the doctorate was very weird for me. I always kind of thought I was going to do it just because of obviously like job prospects and all that sort of thing. But as I went more and more into the whole conservatory system, all of academia, again, like just getting exhausted, getting really tired with the whole everything. I'm not saying like there's no good things about the conservatory or anything of that. Like there's a lot of good things, but it's a lot. So I couldn't even believe it when I started applying. I was like, man, I'm really going to do this again, like right after the master's. But I think everything kind of fell into place at the right time. So last semester, right before I applied to my doctorate, I took probably the 2 best courses I've ever taken in my entire life. I took this one course called Silence Voices with Dr. Marcus Rathi, and this other course called Musical Afrofuturisms with Michael Veal. And those courses really, not that like I didn't realize before, but it really, you know, put that nail in the coffin to really show you all the issues with the conservatory and the music we study, the music we choose to study and perform. And just to preface this, I think a large part of what I didn't like about the conservatory was, as a whole, is it kind of puts you in a box. And for me, like, I've never been a person who was able to survive around constraints. I've always felt as soon as someone tells me what to do, when to do it, how to do it, I just feel like I'm this isn't me. I can't do it. I need to like explore every avenue of creativity, you know? So that was a big thing for me. And it was just, especially with guitar, you know, like it's one thing when you're a pianist, but like for guitar, you know, like our repertoire pales in comparison to any other, you know, classical or orchestral instrument. So you go to these concerts, you go to these festivals, and it's the same music over and over again. You know, it's the same music winning, it's the same, all this sort of thing, right?
Yes.
So when I took these, when I took these courses at Yale, and I started to see all these amazing composers who have, you know, like just wrote amazing music, like from the Baroque era to today, and it's just like we don't study these composers, and we just say, well, you know, this music doesn't exist. But there's a history of Black composers, of women, of, you know, that write phenomenal music. And I started finding this music along with my colleagues and just like, you know, arranging things, reading through things, and just feeling like a kid again, you know, like playing guitar for the first time, just so excited, just finding all this cool music that like it's been recorded once or it's like never been recorded. And, you know, I've just like spent days like reading through this stuff, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And so I changed my entire graduating recital program, and I started learning all this amazing music, and I started becoming really, really passionate about it, writing all these papers, and I was like, this could become something, you know, this is the type of work that I'm finally feel excited doing, you know, like finding music by existing music or commissioning new music by underrepresented composers, and even just like working with living composers, all of these things, like I loved it so much. And then I started thinking about, you know, what would I need to make these projects impactful and successful. And the one thing that comes up all the time is money. You know, you need to have funds. You need to have funds to commission composers and to like make albums and all this sort of thing, right? So I started thinking like, what are my possible avenues I could go on here? And the doctorate was always an option, but there was not really a place that I wanted to study except for back home here in Montreal. And that's because, I don't know if you know who Steve Cowan is, but he is a good friend of mine, and he also teaches here at McGill. And Steve is just like one of the people that inspires me the most. I like when I was doing my undergrad, he was doing his doctorate, and it was just like he was such a help. You know, he was amazing, and he's teaching at McGill now, and he's always been super supportive of my projects and always like really, really down for all the weird, wacky stuff I want to do. So I was like, you know what? Let me apply to a doctorate at McGill, see if I can study with Steve, and you know, really, really have the guidance I need to continue doing this work, and not just to like do this work, like to seriously like try to make something of it, to make a change in one way or another, right? So I applied to the doctorate with Steve, and everything kind of worked out, thankfully. And that's been my whole reason, is just like I want to be able to be at a place where I'm surrounded by, you know, creative people who are all kind of passionate about the work that they do. I want to be in a place where, you know, I have other musicians, other artists to collaborate with. I need like guidance, all that sort of thing. So although I have like this weird association with academia in a sense, I think the doctorate will end up being like a really good place for me and like these projects. But again, like it's not the route for everyone, you know. It's not to say like you have to go do a doctorate in music, because like it's a doctorate in music. Like I'm getting a doctorate in playing guitar. But you know, like the opportunities that are granted to you after this sort of thing, and what you do at the time that you're given in these sort of programs is what matters the most. Because you could do this program and just like, you know, I'm doing this to get the degree, and you don't really do anything with it. You're not really like focused on creating something, and that's fine. You know, if you want to get the degree, just get the degree. But I'm trying to go into this with this idea that I'm going to be working like crazy for the next 5 years to make like a really amazing project.
I love that you have the perspective of like, what am I going to do with this time? Because I cannot tell you what I had learned in any of the theory classes that I've taken in the past 4 years, but I can tell you how many projects I've done that had nothing to do with school, but that would have only been available to me had I been in school. So it's just like really weird, kind of like thing you have to go through. And I see a lot of, you know, our colleagues who end up getting the doctorate or, you know, some another degree program or something, and they just kind of, you know, do it, and then they're like, what do I do now?
Yeah, exactly. And like, it's rough. It's rough out there. You know, like it's not easy. And a lot of people fall into that. Like, what do I do now? I mean, I was falling into that for sure by the end of my master's. I was like, oh crap. Like, what do I do now? But I think part of it is also the fact of like the pandemic. You know, like just being inside all the time, having so much time to just sit down and create, and seeing like having the time to be able to see all the things you could actually be doing and exploring and all that, rather than just being so, you know, like stuck in my books doing assignments all the time. Like, because obviously like doing school online has been a lot less busy than doing school in person. So like having all that free time has definitely been really helpful in like pinpointing where the direction I want to take with these projects.
So what other projects, video wise, do you have going on right now? Because there's so many videos coming out. So yeah, what are you producing and putting into the world?
Well, right now, I think I've decided that I'm gonna do like pre-recorded videos for my graduating recital. So I'm putting together a pretty big program of music for the end of April. So that's like my next video project. But that like constitutes a lot of different music. So I guess it's like a bunch of video projects all in one. The biggest thing I'm working on right now, apart from the whole like recital degree stuff, is I'm working on kind of an arrangement, I guess, of like Shelley Washington's piece, Workers' Dreadnought. So she wrote that electric guitar quartet, and I love it so much, but I don't know when I'll be able to play it because I'm inside all the time. Yeah. And I'm not around other musicians. So it's like this mind-blowing 30-minute long like electric guitar quartet, and I'm working on making it for like one solo guitar, one solo electric guitar, and pre-recorded tape track. So that's the big project I'm working on right now that I'm really excited about. I started working on it very recently, and I don't know when it'll get done, but it's been so much fun, and yeah, I'm really, really excited to be working on that.
You gotta set a premiere date, and then it'll be done.
I know, right? You just gotta set, and you're like, damn, like I have 4 weeks to do this.
Yeah. I don't think like, we were talking about deadlines, and I don't think that I've ever been like such a deadline-driven person until this past year. And it's like, if it doesn't have a deadline, it's not getting done.
Yeah, it just kind of exists. If there's no deadline, it's just like, oh, I'm gonna do that thing.
Yeah, but it's like, I could do that thing, or I could watch YouTube. So I'm gonna go watch YouTube.
Yeah, about someone else doing another thing.
Right, to make me feel like I'm doing the thing, and then afterwards
exactly.
It's like, oh, I feel bad now. It's just like this whole cycle that we're all in. But I also want to talk to you about repertoire and the guitar community, and I mean, I think we could go on and on about this because I do a lot, but just like, what are your thoughts on the repertoire that you hear when you go to a festival, when you go to a recital? Yeah, I want to know, because I have thoughts.
What am I not allowed to say here?
No cursing. That's the only thing you're not allowed to say.
Okay, cool. So, okay. I would like to know, like, what's the reason? Like, it would be interesting to ask people, like, why are you playing this?
Yes.
What makes you want to play this? And not in a pretentious way either. Like, it could be any reason. It could be like, oh, my grandmother really loves this piece. Be like, okay, that's a great reason. Cool. I think part of it is, how can I? There's a lot of things linked to this issue, right? And I would say one of them has to do with social media in a sense. And I feel like a lot of music today has kind of like authenticity taken out of the equation. A lot of people are playing, you have one side of it where you have the issue of teachers. You have teachers that are trying to turn their students into mini thems. Then you have the other issue of, the music that wins competitions. And then the whole other issues that come along with having an ego as a musician, right? And I'm not saying that everyone who does competition has an ego, but there's a lot of these things associated. Yeah. So I think when it comes to festivals and competitions and all this sort of thing, everyone goes to these things with the idea of like, oh, I'm gonna do something new. Like I'm gonna wake up the guitar world. I'm gonna blow their minds. And it's like the Jose Sonata, but 4 times faster. And I'm like, you did something. But yeah, so it just confuses me because I'll go to these competitions and things, and I'll hear people complain about the lack of music that guitar has, and like how they wish, like, oh, if Beethoven would have written for guitar, and like all these things.
Let that go.
But then they're all playing the same music, Yeah. And I've had this conversation with a few people, and it's especially like when I started trying to find Black composers, right?
Yeah.
I started having this conversation where, like, just ask me, like, do you know any Black composers? Like, we had this conversation a lot. You helped me a ton. And a lot of people a lot of people would give you the answer, well, it's like, Black composers don't, there aren't Black composers. They don't write for classical music. Like, women don't write classical music. Women don't write for guitar, all this sort of thing. And it's like, I'm pretty sure they do. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of it.
Yeah.
And once I started finding all this music, I was like, oh, yeah, there's endless amounts of music out there that isn't by the same, 4 composers. I think the classical guitar tradition is like a really beautiful one. I think there's a lot of amazing music, a lot of amazing history. I think it's also a really problematic one, and no one really seems to want to address that and kind of like see what role they're playing in that. I would love to see I don't even know what I would love to see at competitions. I just feel like the whole thing needs to kind of change, if I'm being completely honest. Even this whole idea of like, people have differing opinions on set pieces, but like I feel like the whole thing of a set piece can be kind of weird. It depends. That can go either way. But yeah, the whole idea of competing in music has been a very strange concept to me for like forever.
Yeah, same. I feel like set pieces, it's like two things. It's like I don't love competitions, so I'll just put that out there. But like if they're gonna exist, I do kind of like the idea of like seeing how 50 other people interpret one piece. Now, I don't think that you can equally measure that, but it's interesting to hear 50 different interpretations. But, you know, the other part of that is like they're all playing the same thing. And then what they do is they all, because no one learns new pieces, they all play the same thing for like the next 3 competitions.
Yeah.
And then the winners are just rotating based on if their teacher is on the panel or not.
Yeah. Good day, bad day, good teacher, bad teacher. You know?
Right. So it's just like this really strange thing, and people think that they can like change the landscape by changing the competitions, and it's just like I don't think that that's really going to happen.
Yeah. Because like I feel like a lot of the whole thing about competition is inherently it kind of declares there's a right and wrong way to play this piece. Mm-hmm. You know? And no one can really say that, you know? Like I said before, like a lot of people would argue I write really bad music, and you know, a lot of people would argue not. And it's all subjective, you know. You can't tell someone that they didn't play that scale at measure 40 fast enough, and because of that, you know, they're losing the competition. I don't know.
There was a competition, it was like 2 years ago, that was really specific about, okay, the piece was Villalobos, A2 number 2. And, you know, the beginning, they were like, okay, you have to play this I am A all the way down at 120. And it was basically, like, it had these, like, really weird constraints around it so that they could attempt to objectively measure your performance of the piece.
That's insane.
Yeah, I don't think that competition ended up happening for obvious reasons. But like,
I feel like that's something I would have thought of when I was like 12 years old, like hanging out at a friend's house. Like, okay, we're gonna play this piece with the metronome, IMA only. We'll see who does it better.
It's like a horse race. It's like a horse race almost. Like, you know.
That's insane. I did not know about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird things out there that exist, but I think in the guitar community, we've come to accept competitions as a pathway to a career.
Yeah.
And how do you feel about that? Like, what do you feel about making a career in music, on the internet, on social media, and all that?
Okay, well, I don't do competitions, so let me just start with that. Oh. I don't really do. I think I've done 3. I think I've done 3, and I think I got like second in one of them, and that was it.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah, good odds. 1 out of 3. But no, I don't. A lot of people, yeah, there is a really good advantage to doing competitions. A lot of them have really good prize money. A lot of them have like you get a tour afterwards. You get concerts. It's all really good. The concept of these competitions are really solid. I think. I personally don't enjoy doing them. I don't enjoy the feeling of like just competing against like my colleagues playing music that we all love, and then having these judges tell us objectively who's the best, when I feel like that's kind of an impossible task. There are a lot of good sized competitions though. Like if that's what you really want to do, then pick rep that you really love and you're willing to be playing for a really long time over and over again, because that's kind of the key to winning competitions, is to get really, really good, really comfortable with a certain section of repertoire. Some people can live that type of lifestyle, like, you know, like it, because it is a very particular lifestyle. I'm not one of those people who can do it. You also said, like, talking about social media, and I think that's something that's like another side of the music world right now, which is also kind of like a double-edged sword. There's a lot of good things with social media. We wouldn't have met for social media. I've met like so many interesting people in the art world, not even just like guitarists and music, just like in the art world in general. I've seen so much cool art. I've seen, like, you know, everyone is putting so much amazing stuff out there right now, especially like we're always on our phones seeing everything that everyone's doing, and it's just the creative output is amazing. But then the bad side of social media, I would say, is like a lot of people are forgetting that, like, it's a product, right? And like when you're not paying for something, you're kind of the product there, which is, you know, like you're on your phone just going through Instagram like it's a jackpot, and like targeted ads are a thing, all like the algorithms thing, all these things are happening on your phone, and it's just like, it's a weird place to be, you know? And it's, people are getting super stressed out now because, man, like, oh, so many people aren't seeing this minute video I posted. Like, the algorithm hates me. My life is over. It's like, I need to be making reels. Like, reels just came out. I got to make the best reel I could think of. And again, it's like, it's taking authenticity out of the equation a little bit. It's you know, people are trying to just push out content as fast as they can and just hoping that it'll get them somewhere. And I think a lot of it is like, well, what is the quality of this content? Or like, are you happy making this content? Or why are you making this content? You know, and it's a weird time we're living in, because like social media puts you in contact with so many amazing people. It can get you so many different opportunities. And I'm very grateful for the opportunities that I've gotten just by like being on my phone and like posting. Like, I'm very grateful that like I'm very grateful that like people are willing to take a minute out of their day to watch me like play guitar, make weird sounds on my laptop. Like, anyone listening who like watches the stuff I do, thank you. Like, I can't believe you like it, but thank you. You know, but then it's like a lot of people go crazy on social media and trying to figure out like, well, why aren't I good enough? Why aren't people liking my stuff? And it's kind of a really good thing and a really scary thing at the same time. But I think for the art world, it's like a necessary evil we have to live with, learn how to adapt with it, because it is going to get you gigs, it is going to make you connections, but you can't get too lost in it and try to tie like all your worth to your social media and like, oh, I'm never going to get a gig because I don't have 6,000 followers. And it doesn't work that way.
It doesn't, but the perception of people, probably myself included, who are like doing all of these things and getting all of these opportunities via social media, I don't think we're doing a great job of being honest and being forthcoming about, you know, like what the experience is for us, the positives and the negatives that come along with it. Because, like, you know, it's kind of strange. Like, you do get, you know, very thankfully, a lot of really great opportunities from social media, but not as many presenters are saying, oh, this person has 90,000 followers, we're going to give them a concert, as in the classical music space. I think in other genres of music, it could be different, but, you know, of course, I don't really know. But yeah, I don't think that guitar societies, as much as we would like to think, are like, you know, you got 6,000 followers, you get a concert. Oh, you only have 1,000, you don't get a concert. Like, you know, it's interesting.
Exactly. Yeah. At the end of the day, everything's a tool, you know, like if you're trying to get, you know, your creations out there, you're going to try to use every tool you can to get into the hands of people, you know, and social media is really great for that. A lot of people have heard my music around the world that like I would have never thought like would have gotten past my neighbor, you know. So it's really great. But it can be like unnecessarily stressful too. It can be a lot of things. I think you're completely right. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I love how you're like, oh, what is a reel? I gotta start posting a reel. It was totally like that. Like, I remember just like, not being on Instagram, and then like finally it's like, oh, Instagram is like TikTok now. Well, what is a TikTok? And do I have to
It's
create
like all
different
these new
content?
apps.
Yeah, like Clubhouse. I posted on my story about Clubhouse, and you were like, "What is this?"
What is it?
And I was like, "I don't
It's like,
know."
dude, I don't even have enough storage on my phone for this anymore. Like, I have like 4 different videos of the same piece for like 4 different platforms, and I'm like, what is going on?
Right, and it's like, well, you got to be on YouTube too, and it's like, well, what do you put on YouTube? I don't know. Can it be long, short? I don't know. But there are shorts on YouTube now. Is that a reel? Is that a TikTok? It's just like this cycle of, it's like trying to keep up. It's like, but it's like if you don't do a little bit of keeping up, you're just gonna float away into the abyss, and no one's gonna know. And no one's gonna know that you floated away. And
That's so true. That's so true.
Yeah. I like to say I'm trying to stay relevant adjacent. It's like right. It's like right on the peripheral or the periphery of someone's mind, so that when it comes time for them to really think about something, they're like, "Oh, Ciyadh," Oh,
I'm gonna quote you on that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm quoting.
Because there's no way that like I'm just. There are really awesome things about the internet, but TikTok, I just can't I don't have the bandwidth to like be creating something else new, over there, and so that was just an example of like I can only create so many things.
Yeah, I already have enough anxiety doing what I do right now. I don't need to add to the list.
Yeah. So it's just really. It's really interesting, and it's interesting to notice the different kinds of communities within music that exist on certain platforms. Because I feel like the guitar community is really big on Facebook still. Mm-hmm. But I go to Facebook to keep up with my family, and so I'm like Instagram is where I'm doing the guitar thing. But Twitter is like this place where everyone is just yelling, and there aren't a lot of guitarists, but that's where the composers are, because they can like share their thoughts. So it's just
get really deep with it,
Yeah, yeah. They're like some of the things that people say. It's just funny to like see how different people are in different places on the internet.
The social media just turned us all into monsters. I'm telling you, we're all gonna in like 20 years, we're all gonna just be cringing at ourselves, like, oh my god, so much of me exists on the internet.
Yes, yeah.
Why did I need 7 different accounts?
Right, yeah. I've been thinking that soon I'm gonna go back and like delete all of my old tweets, and not that I said anything that was like bad, but I don't remember, and like I don't want anyone to find it because I don't want to be canceled. Like oh no,
like just in case, just in case I get canceled for like that bacon tweet like 7 years ago.
yeah, exactly. But it so feels that way, that like something that is like both really permanent but also ephemeral. Like no one cares what I saw or what I tweeted 5 years ago until they care, And it's just like,
you should a cool thing to do would be to like create a piece of music like setting to text all your old tweets of just like the person I once was becoming the person I am.
That'll be the commission. That'll be our first collaboration. I'll get you
cool.
a file of all of my old tweets, and then you'll set them.
Just screenshot each one before you delete it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's just like, it's what a time to be alive,
It's the best way to put it.
Memes, although I love memes, so
can't get enough of memes.
Yeah. GameStop, anybody? No, just and I never really understood any of that either, I just saw it and I was
like,
like,
people on Twitter explain it to you. They'll explain it to you.
Yeah, they will. Yeah, you can tweet like, I saw a tweet yesterday. It's like, can someone explain the NFTs to me like I'm a 5-year-old? And like people will do it. They'll explain it to you, and it can be really, really helpful. So social media is both a really helpful and a really hurtful place. So it's just kind of managing expectations and feelings around that. But
yeah, definitely.
I know that you're on there, and so I like to have conversations with people who I know are on there, and like see the same things I'm
weird
seeing.
being on there. Yeah, no, for sure, because it's like I think a big part of it. The good thing about it is like the opportunity to like create these communities of like people who inspire you and like-minded people who kind of do the same thing as you, people who do something completely different but just like blow your mind. Like it's really cool. You can create these amazing communities that, you know, like really influence your work. And I think that's what I've really gotten away from social media that's been really, really great. Also, if you want to hear, you know, a set piece, you were saying about like a set piece played 50 different ways, you know, Instagram.
Yeah.
Hashtag Jose. 50 different interpretations right there.
Yeah.
There's your thought experiment.
To check back around GFA time and to hear the set piece.
I'm going to watch the GFA with the metronome and just like note who plays everything the fastest, and that'll be undoubtedly the objective winner.
I mean, you're right. They're totally right. I've had conversations with people and this is, yeah, I've had conversations with people and I'm like, okay, I kind of understand, you know, why someone might like this, but I was like, can you explain it to me? And they're like, they're just fast.
It makes me excited to see this person do this fast.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I guess they're a winner now. They're fast, so.
There you have it, folks.
Yeah.
That's how you become a successful guitarist.
So, I mean, of course, I want to say thank you to you for coming on the show and having this conversation with me. And it's been really great to get to know each other on and off social media. And I'm, you know, look forward to the day when I can come up to Montreal, because you don't want to come to Texas.
Oh my God, that's going to be so much fun.
Yeah,
that's going to be dope.
Yeah.
We got masks down here still.
You got our backs. Thank you.
We got.
Is there anything that you'd like to share to make sure people see? I'll of course link it in the show notes, but just like, is there anything you want to share? Anything that you've been listening to you want to share? Can be yes, no, maybe so.
Let's see. I'm not really putting anything out right now as it is. I'm kind of like just working on everything I'm about to put out. So if you want to follow me on social media, and in a couple of weeks, you'll see some really cool new music that I'm about to put out.
I'll time it. I'll time it so that it comes out. The show comes out at the same time.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. As always, my album Derrida is up on, all my stuff is up on my Bandcamp. So if you want to support me, that's a great way. Music I'm listening to right now, go check out Lianne La Havas. I've been listening to her album for like months now, but I'm like listening to it like obsessively again because it's just so good. So that's what I'm listening to right now. And yeah, that's about it. I really loved having this conversation with you. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And as always, this is the Musically Cogitating podcast, and this was fun. So until next time.
The best podcast ever.